Hey everyone, I'm Amy Connell. Thanks for tuning into Lessons to My Teenage Self. This is the shortcut you need to thrive in your physical, mental, and spiritual health. As a personal trainer and nutrition coach, I'm passionate about empowering you to find your best version of health. Each week we dig into one topic that I wish I had known as a teen. Today actually begins the first in a 10-part series on intuitive eating. Yes, we have covered this previously, but I wanted to dig deeper because there is so much to it. I have taken my conversations from my Graced Health podcast and condensed them to shorter episodes for you. So today is a condensed episode. If you want to hear the full episode, you can find this episode over on the Graced Health podcast in season 21. With that, let's start with intuitive eating principle number 1, reject the diet mentality. I have Tracy Brown on with me. Tracy is a registered dietitian. So I'm so glad that you have joined us for this, Tracy.
Oh, Amy, thanks for having me back.
Let's start by you defining what principle 1, reject the diet mentality, means. So give us a high-level overview of that.
Reject diet mentality is that we start to take stock of how we've all been tricked to believe that the only way to be healthy and the only way to be fit, whatever that means, is to get a smaller body. And so there's like this mentality of the ends justify the means, meaning if I care about health, it doesn't really matter what I do to get there. When we reject the diet mentality, it means that we can pursue health, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual well-being, without trying to get our bodies to change size or shape. Mm-hmm. And basically, ultimately, we're letting the chips fall where they may. And that will open up a whole can of other stuff, since childhood, about what we think healthy means, about what we think belonging looks like, what we think who we have to be to be healthy.
Right. Okay. What are your thoughts, Tracy, on, I've heard this a lot. Well, I need to lose weight for my health because my cholesterol is high. My blood sugar is out of control. Talk to us some about those types of situations.
Absolutely. And that's what most people do. That's a very normal question given the programming we've had in our culture.
Yeah.
Is that if I have some dis-ease or unease or disorder or disease in my body, it's because of something I did with my food and body or with my food and my movement. And I'm not saying there aren't pieces of that, but what we want to see is a bigger picture. So when somebody comes to me, let's say with some, insulin resistance or high cholesterol, I look at people's health from this really holistic approach, which is, all right, what's going on in your fight, flight, freeze, or flee system? Because a body that is always in threat is going to be in a survival state, not in a equilibrium thriving state. So you're going to eventually, over time, the longer you're in some kind of threat response, your body systems they're just not going to be working appropriately. There's more stress hormones in your system, which makes your liver think, for example, that you need more glucose to deal with the tiger chasing you, when really it's only work deadlines or perfectionism or afraid that everybody's looking at you and judging you, because maybe that stuff happened. It doesn't mean that all your reasons for feeling dysregulated are real. We want to be able to adapt and learn their strategies besides, I need to people please, I need to get a skinnier body, I need to hide and shrink, I need to disappear somehow. So chronic dysregulation actually causes the foundations for a lot, or probably much all the diseases that we know, right? So same thing with high cholesterol. It's like, well, we can talk about your fiber intake, your omega-3 intake. That's great. Let's see if there's some missing pieces there. But what about your sleep? What about your stress level? What about your relationship with the Lord and safe people? Because anything that causes a threat response is likely to get your body to under or overdo something to survive. So people just want to change the food and they want to go for walks. And that's great. That will give you about 20 to 30% of some improvement. But the rest of it, even if your food is quote unquote perfect, you may not fix it. Mm-hmm. We're going to get to the root of all the causes of this dysregulation. And that will go for every condition I'm going to talk to anybody about. Another reason to reject diet mentality is that it works against biology. You can't scare your body into being a body that you want. You've
Right.
got to get yourself into physiologic safety for your body to probably improve health. And you have to have sustainable health behaviors that don't actually cause you more stress long term.
All of that makes sense. It's so funny because I feel like in the last 6 to maybe 12 months, I have heard over and over, diet culture like this. And I know that this has existed really since the 60s when this really started.
Sure.
My understanding of the history of dieting really started. But it just seems like all of a sudden it is a horrible word, as it should be, right? Like diet culture. But I'm just wondering if you might be able to speak into why it is so harmful and
Yeah.
coupling that question with like, why is it so harmful? And this desire of, well, I would like to lose weight and be healthy. And I think most people who are familiar with diet culture are saying, well, that's kind of diet culture-ish, which can be also be a hard thing because it's people are saying, well, I just want to take care of myself. I just want to take care of my body. So I'm going to lose weight to be healthy and make these lifestyle factors. I know that's a really complicated question. I don't have like a specific question, but I was wondering if you might be able to address that.
Yeah. Well, with a lot of compassion and empathy, remember, we're trained to think that weight loss will make us feel better. Because short term, you get a little high, you get a little bit like most people get compliments when they do it. So there is this emotional overcoupling with like, I'm more seen, you get more emotional goodness from it, which creates the idolatry. And that's how we get caught in it, thinking that I don't really want to be thin anymore. I just want to feel better. I want to move better. And it's like, well, then great. Let's do the health behaviors that help you do that. But what about my weight? And I was like, well, what about it? Who says that you can't improve your health and be more mobile and feel physically better? And again, it keeps going back to what we're trying to do is undo the programming of like, you can have these things. You don't have to be thinner to get it. And that's what creates the cognitive dissonance, meaning like it's such a new paradigm because all of us that are listening to this are probably second, third, fourth generation of other people that raised us who had disordered eating or eating disorder or chronic dieters or whatever dysfunctional eating style was happening. So that's kind of what our neurobiology is made up of. We know that's normal. Mm-hmm. And so when I say like, well, how come you want to lose weight? What about my health? Well, here's all the ways that we can improve this. This is just pretty boring, unsexy nutrition science. Here you go. And you can see, and most people have a little bit of collapse around them. And that's the work, the emotional work and the mental work that has to be done is our value system. And what would it be like if you didn't have your values placed on, your body is like this flag of worth or safety or lovability or identity. That's the body. We've gotten this overcoupled with way before we cared that much about health when we were teenagers, early 20s. Whenever we started doing this stuff, it's like I didn't care about my health. When I started dieting at 16, we care less.
Oh no. It was all about how
I wanted to like have one less thing to be criticized about in my life. Because if you get thin, that's one thing that probably nobody will judge you because of the fat bias in culture, church culture, secular culture. It doesn't matter. It's everywhere now. So this is so important because with each diet, this is what we're trying to renew our minds around. With each diet, the body adapts and learns how to survive, making it harder to lose weight. But it also creates this sense of learned helplessness, and we feel like we have less self-efficacy, and it's like we have more side effects than what we try. And the programming has been, well, that's your fault. Eat less, move more. So it's also a setup for people who are already struggling with some sense of like, if you're already struggling with some self-loathing or perfectionism or whatever you've got going on, that just adds fuel to that fire.
Yeah.
And except one more thing. And when we're in pain, what do we want to do? We want to get away from the pain. So we numb out in some way, more dieting, more binging, whatever. And it's all diet culture. Just this way of looking at food and body as a threat is part of diet culture versus, hey, how can I be supportive to my health? What are behaviors? What is a mindset that's supportive?
Mm-hmm.
It's not trashing your body. It's not criticizing yourself for not eating enough fiber. It's like, that's really interesting that I'm struggling with XYZ health behavior. Let's look deeper into that. Diet culture could care of us about being introspective. It needs you need your mind controls. When you feel this way, you need to do that behavior. What's going to fix me the fastest and get me away from this feeling? So it's a deeper and more insidious thing around disembodiment as well. It's not as simple as like stop dieting. They don't want you with a sound mind.
And what I'm hearing you say, I don't think you use this word, but you might have, and I missed it, but just curiosity of like, why am I feeling, what I'm feeling and why I'm wanting to either diet, or we'll talk more in later series about eating or, and all of that. And then I also really like how you say, we have to undo the programming and change our value system. And I think as Christians, most women would say, of course, my identity is in Christ, right? And, my worth is here. But I think there's that element of what we know versus how we feel it in our heart sometime, and how we still need to fit into the mold of society and society's expectations of, and maybe it's just that for so long. I mean, Tracy, you know this. How long has dieting just been a part of so many of our lives? It is as natural as brushing our teeth.
That's right. It's easy to read. I don't know hardly any people who've ever read the book Intuitive Eating. And with Principle 1, which says reject diet culture, hardly anybody says boo to that. It's like, I don't want that. I read this. I resonate with this. It's all happened to me. I get it. But you're right. Our heart condition's different because, you might know Jesus as your Lord and Savior, but you kind of think having the skin in your body might save you from people's rejection.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the heart condition that has to be healed.
And that's hard work.
That's hard work. Diet culture is this false sense of security and safety. It's this container that those of us who got really pulled into it, we're already vulnerable to it before we ever got exposed to it. Just because our backgrounds or whatever happened. If it was too much or not enough. And so, yes, we're renewing our mind, but it's really, this heart condition that will make it stay. Is that we have to get a softer heart around, like, of course I did this.
It's one of those things, going back to what you were talking about earlier, where when we talk about, okay, I want to be healthy. So the things that we can control the most are our food and our movement. Okay, what am I eating? What's my movement? I am highly guilty in my house of, like, if someone, because I do love nutrition science and because there's a time and a place for all of that, but of like, okay, this is the problem. Okay, well, what can we change in your diet to fix this? Or what do we need to be doing? I know that this is not helpful. And so these are things that I'm working on just as a human. Food and movement are things that we can control the easiest, and the harder work is our heart. And the harder work is the curiosity. But what the numbers that you're saying is, but that's really 70 to 75% of the benefit as well. If we do the hard work, we're going to get the biggest benefit from that.
And this is really soul work. The nutrition part of this whole journey, is 20% of it, maybe, honestly, because of the self-reliance stuff that humans can easily fall into. That's a hard one to unlearn. It's like no one's saying it doesn't matter about nutrition. What we're saying, it's both.
Yeah.
Is that your relationship with food is way more powerful and potent, and how you talk to yourself and the heart position of how you do everything is 80%. The other 20% is the details. That's the reason why general nutrition is at the very end, because people can't appropriately apply gentle nutrition to a mind that's in legalism and perfectionism and fight, please, and please. It's going to be disordered. It's not going to work. You're going to end up in a loop of like thinking that the next new thing is the right new thing versus like, you've got a body. And sometimes bodies after, maybe you're born with something or after decades of wear and tear, Some people need more general nutrition sooner than others, but that doesn't mean that even there's very few times where it's like everything's permanent. If you have to make some changes that are, maybe there's some level of like, it's pretty intense because there's a pretty intense situation going on. Some people that's permanent, but some people it's not permanent. But we treat it as if that's it because we're so programmed. Give me a program. Tell me what to do and all my problems go away versus it's much harder to like, yeah, I'm over here noticing all these bodies and romanticizing my old thinner body and thinking if I had that, I would feel better right now with what's going on. You don't feel so good. I feel isolated. I feel rejected. I feel left out. You don't deal with that work, you're going to be addicted to programs your whole life.
Yeah. Curiosity and discernment are both hard work. Tracy, I'm going to put you on the spot here because you are the first principal. And because I know you have walked so many clients through these principles, as we embark on this here at the Grace Health Podcast, I was wondering if you could provide either some guidance or some just wisdom as we start to unpack all of this. And I will just kind of let that be the final question that we have.
I love it. Yeah, I did make some notes and actually didn't know you were going to ask me that question, but I actually made some notes. Like, where do we start? Self-compassion. Let's start there.
Okay.
You're not going to get this. I tell every client, like, we're going to do some like fine-tune combing through your food a little bit. If this is not a diet monitoring surveillance system here, this is like so you can understand what is the difference between physical and emotional hunger and fullness. We need to know the internal interoceptive differences. So let's be curious. Let's be compassionate. Don't expect yourself to get this right. Give it a lot of time. It took you 40 years to get here. It's not going to take you 40 years to heal, but you're going to have to give it more than 12 weeks time span because that's your diet brain talking. So like, I'm going to be on a 12-week program and then I'm cured. I'm fine. It's like, that's 100% how it's not going to be. The first month or two is going to feel awesome. Like, yay, I'm free. I got out of jail. And then the emotions are really going to start coming up. And that's to be expected. There's nothing wrong with you. See, that's important. Understand your trauma and diet history. They go together. Understand how diet culture really feeds off of the human desire to belong. So understand your history. If you're not going to see a professional like you, Amy, or me, or somebody else, do your own, like, what happened to me? When was the first time food or weight was ever a thing? And don't count the first diet you learned. What were you exposed to? When I was 5, I was compared to my cousin, and they got a little more compliments to me because I was the bigger cousin, and that made me feel really inferior. All right, you're 5 years old. You're going to have to deal with 5-year-old feelings about being treated unfair. That's going to happen. So just all the places where there were like these markers that you remember, the enemy got in there and it's created a false sense of coping with that since that moment. So don't be surprised. Don't be surprised by anything that I can't believe someone thinking about this or talking about this. Well, believe it because he'll bring in and give you an idea. If you just cut that, you'll be better. If you just do that you'll feel better. Well, it doesn't matter what the food behavior was. It's there. There's a function. So I always tell people there's a function to every thought, every feeling. It was there to do something when you were overwhelmed or you didn't have another resource.
That's great.
I got a couple more if you want them.
I tell you what, let's do one more. I am trying to keep these a little shorter, and I know your time.
I got it. Gotcha.
Your time is limited.
That's no problem. I think to be really honest with yourself, acknowledging how dieting has impacted your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Just take some time to acknowledge that you did the best you could with the information you had and the environment you were in, and nobody offered you a different alternative. Thank the Lord, you have other options now. So we'll keep it that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thank you so much. Tracy, if people are interested in learning more from you or connecting with you, tell people how they can do that.
Well, it's pretty simple. I have a website, so it's tracybrownrd.com. And then the two socials that I'm on mostly is Facebook and YouTube. Tracy Brown RD, both those places. I do have some presence at Instagram, but it's not not super active, but I do have stuff there. It kind of goes along with the post I'm doing. But, you know, my gifting is in talking, teaching, all that kind of stuff. So I do videos like I'm talking to people. And so hopefully people can get a lot of free help from those as well. So.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. You offer some great stuff. Thank you for that. That's all for today. Join us next week for our next intuitive eating lesson, and take today's lesson and go out there and live the life God has for you and your amazing original body.